Hello, folks. Bit of a strange one this evening.
You're not
Kevin
kidding.
did join us, but we've lost him. Basically, his camera wasn't working and he looked like he was standing in the shower. So he didn't really want to carry on as it was. He was more intent on sorting out his iPad because he needs it desperately for work. So he's had to leave us. But luckily, we are joined by Ray Marsh. Thank you for joining us, Ray.
You're very welcome, Chris.
Those who don't know, Ray is the coach of the Letchworth Garden Irish City
The
Irish.
Letchworth Garden City Irish.
Yeah,
it just rolls off the tongue.
Okie doke. So unfortunately, we haven't got Kevin. So I'll do my best just to steer us through this. Luckily, Ray has done the LFC. So he's going to give us the results from there, and we'll have a little chat about who's going places and who's not. And then we'll just have a general chat at the end. So, Ray, if you don't mind, if you'd start us off with the LFC.
Of course, and thank you for that, Chris. So, the results as follows. The first one from the LFC South was between the Knaresborough Knights and the Wolverhampton Weasels that ended up with the final score, the Weasels 28, the Knights 14. There was an 18-point third quarter from the Weasels, which underlined their win, with their RB Gunn scoring on a pair of TD runs, which helped him earn the MVP award. An accurate passing game, which was 88% completion rate, helped the Weasels play keep ball, and 0 turnovers from them was impressive. The Knights had chances, including a failed fourth down attempt on the 32-yard line of the Weasels, which was stopped by the appropriately named stopper, who had a massive game defensively for the Weasels, and conversely not being able to stop the Weasels on fourth down, which led to the first TD of the game. And again, during the first drive of the second half, which ended with the second TD of the game. The following drive saw the Knights again fail on fourth down, with the aforementioned stopper making a tackle for loss, forced fumble and fumble recovery on the play. On the next drive, stopper did it again with another forced fumble and turnover. So that leaves the Weasels at 4-1 on the season, which is good for second by virtue of a slightly inferior division record than the 4-1 Thirlby Rhinos. There's work to be done for the Knights, who are now 2-3 and behind in the division tiebreaker. So the next one in the LFC South was the Thirlby Rhinos and the Fulham Shadows. This one ended up Thirlby 42, Fulham 3. And the scores came early and often for the Rhinos, who had a 30-point half-time lead. The turnovers by the Shadows were very costly, especially considering that there was only a 29-yard difference between the two teams. Although CB Vonner was MVP with 2 interceptions, one of which was returned for a TD, the Rhinos kicker Billingsley also came up big with 7 field goals on 8 attempts. The Shadows are already looking to the draft at 0-5, whilst the Rhinos top the LFC South at 4-1.
It looks like there's a few of us vying for the draft places at the moment.
Yes, we'll come on to that in a minute. In fact, very appropriately, we're coming on to it right now, because as coach of the Letchworth Garden City Irish, this is the game in the LFC West. I decided to take on the Kernow Sharks and lost 42-0. Well coached, I thought, particularly well coached. There was one crumb of comfort for my Irish, literally just one crumb. The Sharks had minus 15 yards rushing.
Oh, well, there you go.
However, underlined, however, the Sharks had 6 TDs passing, which more than made up for that. The Sharks also had an interception, just the 9 sacks, and just 5 forced fumbles, which was way too much for my team to handle. So the Sharks are first in the division, looking to the playoffs, and I'm last in the division, but no longer looking for my arse because it was handed to me on a plate. And I've tried to put that one to the back of the memory, but it's still there and it won't go away. The other game in the LFC West was a much closer one. There's the Mount Dora Massive against the Port Royal Buccaneers that ended up the Massive 24, the Buccaneers 27. And Mount Dora somehow kept things close despite 8 turnovers, 6 of which were lost fumbles. The last one shut the door at the end of the game. The Buccaneers had the better passing game, as the Massive only managed 9 completions, but 7 of those went for a total of 146 yards. The Massive had an awful start offensively. Their first 3 drives resulted in fumble, interception, fumble, which is hardly an ideal start to the game, but were somewhat let off the hook by the Buccaneers, whose first half drives ended in 2 punts, 2 field goals, and 3 field goals missed. Both teams are now at 2 and 3, with the Buccaneers holding the division tiebreaker. An interesting second half of the season lies ahead for the Sharks, Buccaneers, and Massive. And you'll note the lack of the interest of the Irish.
To be fair though, Ray, you've been on the top end of some close games, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, this one was the first one where I got mullered this season. Not the first one I've been mullered in,
yeah.
but the first one I've been mullered in this season. And there was a couple of close ones earlier, but it just hasn't panned out this season. You just haven't got the team going anywhere at the moment. I'm not particularly au fait with mathematics, and I know there's a lot of maths involved in this game. So I'm kind of just rely on luck a lot, which it will get you somewhere.
Well, it's do you know what, I don't want to go that deep into it that it takes the enjoyment out of it. So yeah. I'm not prepared to sit there and go all through all of the rules, working out mathematically what it takes to win.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm like you, Chris. I couldn't do it anyway. I'm maths is not me. It's just not me. So.
Even if it was, Ray, I think it takes away from the enjoyment. You know,
I agree. I agree.
I'd rather it was a mystery. And
although having said that, after losing 42-0, perhaps I need to get the old maths books out. I don't know. I'll get my granddaughters to help.
Right.
Okay, that's the first 4 of the LFC. If you want to crack on with the AFC ones.
Okay.
No, I'm losing them. PFC, isn't it?
Yeah, PFC. Yeah,
getting a little bit NFL orientated there.
Yeah, there's you switched leagues there on us.
I did.
Okie doke. Well, I'll start with booking the place so I can read what I've written. Okay, PFC North. Surprise, surprise. The Surfers, Gary, at the Rivets, Conrad's Rivets, and. What a game. 56 to the Rivets, 37 to poor old Gary's Surfers. And the Rivets do what they do. Conrad's team do exactly what they do. They're dominated on the ground, yes. Dominated with special teams. I think the most impressive stat of all of the stats on reading through them. I mean, I looked at the players, but he was 50% conversion rate on second down. On third down and on fourth down, he was 100%.
Yeah.
1 of 1 on fourth down. 12 of 24 on second, 5 of 10 on third. Yeah. How are you going to beat that? How are you going to compete with that?
Well, I won't.
No, well, I know I certainly wouldn't. I mean, and then his kickoff returns averaged 42 yards.
Yeah, that's
so you can't. Conrad's special teams, it's just. It puts him in such a strong position all of the time, and that's how he racks up the points, because he's not going on these long drives that the rest of us are attempting. You know, he masterclass from Conrad again. Unfortunate for Gary. Yeah. Moving on, the Maroons against the Bombers. Scott's Maroons, Jeff's Bombers. What can you say? It's a bit of a strange game, really, because the Maroons won 54-7. Because they basically just shut down the passing game, the Bombers' passing game that they rely so heavily on. They didn't really, I wouldn't say they didn't deserve to win 54-7, but it was very harsh on Jeff's team to lose by that score. But, you know, the Maroons, I mean, The difference really, they've got a wide receiver called, I don't know how you pronounce this, it's Duong, yeah, and he had 152 yards and 3 touchdowns, and that was probably the difference in the game.
Yeah,
truthfully. Yeah, and Jeff's team just didn't get into it; they didn't compete. Simple as that. So, in terms of that division, Comrade clearly 5-0, marches on undefeated. The Surfers go to 3-2. The Maroons are 2-3, and the poor old Bombers are 0-5. Yeah, that sounds very familiar, doesn't it?
It does sound very familiar to me.
Right, PFC South. Now then, Bulldogs at the Devils. This again, Bulldogs weren't in this game. It finished 6 to the Bulldogs, 44 to the Devils, Zane's Devils, Miranda's Bulldogs. And basically, the Bulldogs couldn't stop the Devils' passing game. Quarterback Arathan threw for 440 yards and 3 touchdowns, dominated the game. Devils had what was basically just an easy win. But honourable mention goes to Miranda's inside linebacker, Hunt, who had 18 tackles, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so I think if I'd got Stopper, as one inside linebacker, and Hunt as the other inside linebacker, I might have a better chance against the Generals.
Yeah.
We'll come to that later on. Moving on, Warriors against the Eagles. So Ambrose's Warriors against Andy's Eagles. Again, dominant performance from the Eagles. They won 41-3. Dominated possession, ground out the run game, just stopped Ambrose's Warriors from just moving the ball at all, really. And it was over in the first quarter. The Eagles led 24-0, and that was that. Andy keeps motoring on, and it's going to make it very interesting when we get to sort of the end of the season and the playoffs and the likes, because the Eagles go to 5-0, Devils and Warriors 2-3, and the Bulldogs 0-5.
You're going to have to explain that term playoffs to me. It's not a thing I'm familiar with.
Well, I wouldn't have a clue because I've never made them. Yeah, that's just a thing in the distance. It's like the horizon. It's something I can't quite get to.
For my sins, I'm a Detroit Lions fan as well. A massive Detroit Lions fan. But this year...
Well, you see, now it's all changed this year.
I can't say the word out loud anymore. That's it. I'm allowed once. That's it. I can't say it again. Not out loud.
It's I was trying to think. I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan.
Oh dear. I'm so sorry for you, Chris. I'm sorry.
I was gutted. What's the name of your coach? Dan
Campbell.
DC.
MCDC.
Now he took over as an interim coach with the Dolphins.
He was interim coach, yeah.
Yeah, and he was doing really well, and I was very disappointed when he didn't actually get the head coaching gig. Yeah, and he's gone on to prove with Detroit that he is a damn
It's
good
funny
coach.
because I wasn't even 100% behind the fact that they went with him when they did. I wasn't sure whether he would be the right character. I can't believe I even felt that now, because it's totally and utterly changed the face of the franchise completely. I mean, completely. And he's good on tape. People can't wait to see what he says next on interviews and whatnot. He's great for it.
Yeah, but the thing I liked about him when he was with us is he just spoke the truth.
Yeah, well, this is it. It's what he feels.
Yeah,
and it's all about gut feeling, which is terrific.
He doesn't hide behind anything. If he thinks he's in the wrong, if he's made a mistake, he'll come out and say it. Yeah,
oh, absolutely.
And he'll call out his players.
Him and his shiny little kneecaps. And
right.
Sorry, I digressed.
We digress here, don't we? We better go back to the big sky. Right then, if you can carry on with the LFC, please, Ray.
Well, this is the continuation of the LFC, but in the East, which featured Brisbane Phoenix against the Southern Statesmen. Final score: Phoenix 28, Statesmen 21. But this one was a bit of a strange one because Brisbane had the ball for just over 40 minutes, thanks to a really effective running game that gained 198 yards and 3 TDs, and an extremely accurate passing game where QB Evans had a 90.9% completion rate.
Oh, God.
Now, if you combine 198 yards on the ground and 3 TDs and a 90.9% completion rate and keep the ball for 40 minutes, you're going to expect to be winning by a landslide. But they only had 2 incompletions, but unfortunately one of them was an interception. So that, combined with 2 lost fumbles, helped to keep the game closer than it really should have been. Not a National Tight End Day happened in the NFL recently. In GI3, it was in this game. There were 37 completions combined, with 2 TEs, seems to be me to say, accounting for 29 of them. Mazza, not sure, of Brisbane was appropriately given the MVP award with a whopping 19 catches for 261 yards and a TD. So all of that meant that Brisbane have maintained their 100% record, standing at 5-0, whilst it's going to be tough sledging for the Statesmen, who now stand at 1-4, and they're also 0-3 in the division.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lee, I doomed you.
Yeah. So, next one in the East was the Berlin Fire and the Darlington Sun Devils that ended up with the Fire 44, Sun Devils 14. Berlin kept the pressure on Brisbane by cementing second place with a 4-1 record, including a 3-0 divisional record. So all eyes are on next week as the top 2 meet in what should be an epic clash. In setting this game up, Berlin controlled the clock for a really impressive 41 minutes and 50 seconds, smothering the Sun Devils with 20 first downs against only 4. So that meant there were 63 ball control plays for Berlin against just 24 for the Sun Devils. And the running game accounted for 44 carries and 188 yards with 3 TDs. So that ball control, sometimes it makes you go out at a canter. Other times, like I say, if you have the odd fumble and interception, doesn't always pan out, but on that one, it did.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. There's the 2 sides of the coin, isn't there? Do you go for the quick receiver and the long passes, or do you go for possession football? I don't know. And yeah. I'm undecided on that.
I mean, when I first started watching the NFL, that was 82, it was the old 3 yards and a cloud of dust. But now it tends to be the 30 yards and have a celebration in the camera in the corner of the end zone. It's a different sport now. But that ball control, if you get it right, you'll do really well. But I haven't actually managed that yet.
I'm trying to build for it, but I'm getting nowhere.
Yeah, I think it's just pending on mine. It's like getting that annoying buffering message you used to get years ago. It's always pending. So now off to the north with the Leeds City 66ers against the swarming Giant Hornets. And the 66ers won't want to hear this one, but this one was 30-0 for the Hornets. The 66ers just couldn't get anything going in the game. I know the feeling, as their offense struggled mightily. 3 pass completions and 10 runs combined for a net -14 passing yards and 16 on the ground, whilst being out first downed by 23-3. I mean, that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So the Giant Hornets, their RB Escobar was on a high. Sorry about that one. Cracking, the 200-yard receiving mark and adding 2 TDs on the ground. It's potluck stopping him. So defensively, the 66ers did cause 4 turnovers, which when you look at the stats with a net of 2 yards and being outgunned 23 first downs to 3, you'd expect it to be a lot more than 30-0. So those turnovers helped to at least soften the blow a touch. they're now a game behind the Giant Hornets with an inferior division record.
Yeah, it's Collins' team's coming together. I mean, Escobar's virtually unstoppable, and he's got such a great defense.
Yeah.
So
I've never worked out how the receiving back thing works. I probably should look it up sometime, but I'm sure it'll involve maths, in which case then there's just no chance. But I'll have my granddaughter have a look at it, I think.
She'll sort it out.
Or just get over to take over my team. Nobody will notice, but you'll be highly suspicious when they start winning constantly. Sorry, dreaming there. So on to the last one in the north, which featured the Shower boy Kevin's Glasgow Rushmores against Newmaker Patriots. I believe it's somewhere near Aberdeen.
Is it?
I'm correct, I think. Yeah. That one ended up, and I will call them the Patriots from here on because I don't know how it's pronounced. The Patriots 29, and the Rushmores 26. And I did note a comment from Kevin on the game board, which saying that it's finished off his chances for the playoffs, which I think that's a little bit early to say that yet. It didn't help. But the Patriots basically predominantly passed their way to the win. They got a QB Oakwell and WR Drift. Oakwell got the MVP nod, probably because Drift blotted his copybook with a fumble. The Rushmores, by contrast, do appear to rush more. Right. The first half ended with the Rushmore's field goal as time expired, giving them a 13-point lead at the interval. And another field goal early in the third quarter put them in what looked to be a great position at 26-10. The Patriots weren't done and scored the game's last 19 points. Agonizingly for Kevin and the Rushmores, they came up just short of field goal range in the dying moments of the game, losing their chance to take the game into overtime. That is really frustrating when it happens, when you're literally on that cusp of, unless you've got a kicker that's going to knock them in. If you've got a Prater, or, well, from a few years ago, a Prater that would knock one in from that distance. I hate finishing a game where you're stuck on somewhere like between the 50 and the 40, and a wing and a prayer.
Yeah, but if anybody can find a way to cock it up, it seems to be Kev. He's been on the receiving end of so many of those results where it's just gone wrong. Yeah, and he's lost by 2-3 points.
Yes.
I've
had a few of those. But exactly. And apparently, the saying goes, you win some, you lose some.
Or you just lose some.
Mine, it appears to be more you sort of lose a lot. But anyway, for the North, I think it's all to play for. I mean, there's just 2 games separating the teams. But the Giant Hornets are a perfect 3-0 in the division. The other runners and riders are at 1 and 2 in the division, so it does make a difference. But that's still up for grabs. I mean, there is a long way to go there still. So I wouldn't count anyone out in that one, to be honest.
Yeah. Right then, I shall.
That was my very novice attempt at having.
That was great, Ray. That's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted.
So it's very kind of you to say so. But
I'll crack on with the PFC, and then we'll have a chat at the end, and we'll just talk general stuff. Right. PFC West, the Stormers against the Huskies. Right, Mark's Stormers against Don's Huskies. That finished out 28 to the Stormers and 17 to the Huskies. It was a good game, good close game. But the Stormers sealed it with 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. And, I mean, talk about putting the game away. The first touchdown, they went 90 yards at the start of the fourth quarter to score the first touchdown. Yeah. And then they saw the game out with 30 seconds left on the clock with a 60-yard drive. So if you're going to win a game, that's the way to win a game.
Keep the ball.
Great win for the Stormers. Yeah, it was a bit harsh on the Huskies because up until that point, they were leading. Yeah, up until the fourth quarter. 2 great touchdown drives. Mark Mark must have been cartwheeling when he was reading the play-by-play. So good win for them. Unfortunate for Dom. James Titans against Tom's Packers. Again, close score. That was because, well, I'll explain it. It was 21-28 to the Packers in the end. You couldn't hold the Packers' offense. Their offense is outstanding this season. They had 500 yards of offense. But the thing that kept James's Titans in the game was he forced 4 turnovers. If he hadn't done that, then I'm sure it would have been, it would have been a much higher score.
Yes.
But he kept himself in the game. Tom's Packers had 38 minutes of possession, 500 yards offense, very hard to stop. He's been quite unlucky, really, James. He's been in most of the games, and they've just turned on him, and he's just not been able to get the wins in the column. Quite unfortunate. The Packers go to 5-0. Stormers 3-2. Titans are 2-3, and the Huskies go to 1-4. So Stormers are still in it. Yeah, the Packers obviously are going to be competing right to the end. Got to make the playoffs. Going to be very interesting. PFC East, my own division. Right, Pete's Rough Riders against Phil's Rapiers. That finished 12-25 to the Rapiers. Phil's offense was just too strong for Pete's defense. It's simple as that. Quarterback Pogue and running back Galloway were the stars as usual. Dominated. But Pete should be fairly optimistic, if I'm honest, because he's improving all the time. He's getting better. Yeah, he predicted that this season he would finish 5-5, and I would say he's probably going to be about right.
Right.
Yeah, but he's coming back, so it's going to make it very interesting next season.
I'd probably have a heart attack if I ended up 5-5 this season.
Moving on to the final game, Generals at the Chargers. Usual story. The Generals won, as you'd expect. They beat me in the M16-13. And I was quite pleased with that because I managed to hold the score down, even though,
yes.
And I managed to hold their average down for their running game. So I wasn't. They had all the possession, and they really probably should have scored a lot more points. But at the end, I was quite relieved that it wasn't a cricket score. And I always seem to. Well, I say always. I don't always, but at home, I seem to play them a lot closer. Yeah, I can't beat them, but I play them a lot closer.
Yeah.
So that rounds out the PFC. In terms of the playoff teams, Rivets and the Packers, obviously.
Yes.
Eagles, obviously. Generals, maybe. Rapiers, maybe. Yeah, it's going to be very, very tight for the. You're going to get the division winners, and then it's going to be very tight with sort of the Surfers and the Rapiers. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Rapiers could still win the division. The Generals are 4-1, so the Rapiers are 3-2, so they could still, they could still compete there. But it'd be interesting to see how that goes. It's going to make it very interesting in the running.
Certainly.
So that concludes the PFC. So what do you reckon then, Ray? Who's your money on?
But in GI, because I'm still thinking NFL. I can't see it much past the Rivets again. I think it's too sustained to be any form of just luck, fluke, and then good planning. It's just constant. So I'd be surprised if it's not again.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So
I know one team it won't be.
I know another team it won't be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even get that first win bonus. That's the annoying part. When one bloody straight off the bat. Yeah, I won't win another game in probability. Yeah, but that first win bonus went out the window straight away. I was gutted. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I knew how this season was going to pan out. I knew I was going to lose a lot of games.
I was more hoping for. I mean, I seem to have been going through a permanent rebuild, which I don't know. I've had a couple of close ones. Probably one I might have deserved to have maybe fluffed a win, maybe a couple, but just get a win, and then it doesn't feel like a complete disaster, basically.
Yeah.
But the simple fact is, I enjoy it. So to me, it's when you're a kid, you want to win at all costs. Everything's winning. Now with this, it's a game, and I enjoy it. So if the team performs okay and doesn't get embarrassed every week, then that's okay by me.
It's funny actually, because I get more I don't get so frustrated with the results. I don't get frustrated where I finish in the division. Yeah, I do get frustrated with the pops.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because that really is your destiny.
Yeah. I think that's one issue, one aspect of this. I mean, obviously there's a form of luck within it, because you could put all points in one person and still get nothing, or you could put 5 points and get the whole. It's one of those things. But I think it seems that when you're new, you get all the luck in the world, and then when you've been around a little bit, that tends to go out the window.
Yeah, don't you think that's life in general?
Yeah. But it's things like the last thing you need is an injury, and then especially in a position where you're trying to do something in one area where you're light on players, and you may only have 3 guards, and then one of them gets injured, and then you're thinking, what's the chances you're going to get another injury at guard, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I got to be honest. For me this year, it was outside linebackers.
Was it?
Yeah, it's just how it pans out,
I mean, I've taken to just taking anyone off. I've just added one as an awful one off free agent as guard, because I'm so light on them, and it's just one of those things. It happens. I've had some fortune with the pops, but not as much as I would like, but not with the players that I'd like it with.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes
you get one or two good ones. Yeah, the ones you really, really want. Have not happened so much recently.
So, all right, moving on then. So, right, NFL. We'll talk NFL just to close out the show. Yeah, you'll be loving Detroit Lions.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I'm not one of those people that believes in jinxes and stuff like that anyway. I really don't. I think they've got a very good chance. They've got the coach.
Who's the competition? 49ers?
Oh, I mean, I'm thinking still within the division, because the Vikings annoyingly have gone on a run, when you'd have thought when they were playing the 49ers, got injured, and then that one at the time looked like it was going to be a loss, which they played brilliantly in. I've got to say that Kirk Cousins was absolutely outstanding against the 49ers. They've just really picked it up. That's without his top wide receiver.
Yeah.
The rookie came in and did an unbelievable job. That Addison was just fantastic. And then the following game, Kirk Cousins goes down injured, and you're thinking, okay, well, looking good for Detroit, for the rest of the season. They put in their 5th round draft pick rookie, who then got concussed. So they then go to the waiver bench and pick up, the trade and pick up Joshua Dobbs, the astronaut. And look what happens. I mean, they're on a roll. And I mean, they're still not far enough away out of contention. And we haven't played them yet. We played them 2 out of the last 3 games of the season. So still to play for. But within the NFC, I think the Eagles are still going to be around no matter what happens. They're an organised, tough team, and they've got a beast of an offensive line that if you can run the ball and keep your quarterback protected, you've got every chance in the NFL now. So,
well, to be honest, I think you always did, Ray. I think it was always, the big one was always. You look at the teams that have won the Super Bowls. They've always had great offensive lines. I don't think you can win the Super Bowl without a great offensive line.
Oh, and it was people like John Madden was saying it was one in the trenches, and it usually is. If you can keep the pressure on the opposing quarterback and keep the run, the splash plays down to a bare minimum against you, whilst you protect your quarterback and run the ball, you're going to do pretty well. Yeah. And for the first time since a long time that I can remember, Detroit actually looked like a reasonably complete team. I mean, the defense is up and down. It's not the strong point, but it does enough. If the offense is ticking, it's more than doing enough to keep it going. So, yeah, I'm very hopeful. I mean, I've been following them since 1982, and it was I mean, they were pretty good back in the day, but then everything just went wrong. When Barry Sanders retired, it just seemed to be the signalling of the end at that point. And then we end up getting someone like a Calvin Johnson, who's, you know, you've got a once-in-a-generation kind of running back with a once-in-a-generation receiver, but didn't have the quarterback for long enough for that combination to work, and to set something down for the next influx of players into the team. And then we ended up, unfortunately, trying to replicate the Patriots and went down the Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn route, and it was a nightmare, utter nightmare.
So
it left it devoid of talent, had nothing.
So I'm gonna ask you one final question now, because this is a question that has to be asked. Yes. Was Barry Sanders the best running back ever to play the game?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm going to say that I actually was fortunate enough to meet him at the American Bowl at Wembley.
Really?
About 2 hours before or 3 hours before they played, I got there really early, and I shook his hand and really regretted it because he's a very strong bloke. Crushed my hand. And Dan Saliamua, the nose tackle, was just a massive guy, and shaking the hands is not a thing. But it depends what you're looking for. I mean, every generation had the different types of players. You had people like Bronco Nagurski, the Bears, going back to the 30s and 40s. You ended up with like your Walter Paytons, with a mixture of power and speed. You've got Jim Browns in the 50s and 60s. Then you've got your people like Barry Sanders, who's like a human joystick. I mean, he'd run 40 yards to lose a yard, you know, and it was incredible. We've never seen anyone quite so dynamic as him in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree with you. I think there've been some great running backs, but nobody excited the crowd like Barry Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, if he was playing now in the way that the NFL is now, any team that had him would just, I mean, you can imagine playing, your team, the Dolphins, can you imagine having Barry Sanders behind, you know, wow.
Yeah, it's, I even to this day, I still put the highlights on. Just if I'm, feeling a bit glum, I'll watch a bit of Barry Sanders just to cheer.
I mean, the one that stands out to me, I still watch it now. I do it myself. Kept it on a favourite on the phone. Was the one against? It was the last time we won in the playoffs against the Cowboys, 38-6, and that was the year that my daughter was born. I've got 2 grandchildren now, and one of them's a teenager. But the run, he didn't have a massive running game that day, but the one that he hit, there was a defensive lineman for the Cowboys. Can't remember his name. He was a solid defensive lineman, and you can see him doing a 360, standing round, because he thought he'd tackled him and he thought he'd gone down, and he's looking where he'd gone, and he was 30 yards behind him in the end zone. Yeah, it was just, it's amazing. It doesn't happen very often like that. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, on that note, on that very happy note, well, thank you, Ray, for joining us this evening.
No problem, Chris.
Joining me. It should have been us, of course.
Yes.
Apologies to everybody that Kevin couldn't be here. Hopefully he'll be back next week. But thank you very much, Ray. It's much appreciated for you to come and say hello.
And very welcome. I enjoyed it, and I mean, I wasn't sure how it would go, if I'd done the right thing. I'll find out shortly. But certainly enjoyed it, and thank you very much for that.
Okay, that's super. Yeah, thanks again. Well, from the big sky, hopefully Kev will be back next week.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll sign off. Thanks very much, fellas. See you later. Bye.
Cheers. See ya.